Here's what's cooking on an all-new Sports Stove podcast. We continue our NFL preview by giving you the preview for the AFC and NFC South. We're also going to rank our top 10 wide receivers, and we'll cover some Major League Baseball as well. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast.
From Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network, you're listening to the Sports Stove podcast with your host, Vince Stover.
Hey, good looking, what you got cooking? How's about cooking something up to me?
Welcome in to an all-new edition of the Sports Stove podcast, presented by In the Clutch. You're in need of a T-shirt, maybe a baseball T-shirt. In the Clutch is the way to go. Football, hockey, they've got certain specific player T-shirts, different kinds of things going on there. InTheClutch.com. Go check them out, see what they have. And when you find the shirt you like, because I promise you will once you get there, you're going to go ahead and use that code SPORTSSTOVE, get 10% off your purchase. And that way they know the Sports Stove sent you. Great company. Go check them out. You will not be disappointed. We are back, and another week closer to college football, another week closer to NFL football. We're going through our previews. My dad, Dale Stover, joins me again. Dad, happy Sunday to you. How you doing?
Good. Doing good. Like I said, we're getting a lot closer to football. So
we are. We're there almost, right? We're inching so close. I think next Saturday is the college football kickoff. So we're right there to competitive football here very, very soon. The first college games, I think, are on Saturday, and then next week is when they really kick in after that. But we're doing our NFL preview. We've been going through. We've gotten two divisions already, the North divisions and the East divisions. Today, we're focusing in on the South divisions. Of course, we'll continue our fantasy football rankings with wide receivers, as well as the fantasy drafts for us are coming up very quickly. I'm in 4 leagues this year, I think. 3 or 4 leagues. I don't even remember. So they're all coming up here in the next couple weeks as well. I try to wait as long as we can on fantasy drafts, Dad, so that way the injuries and the cuts and any trades, stuff like that, happen before we draft, hopefully. We're going to talk about some important fantasy players, though, in the South divisions. We're going to start with the AFC South, and we won't talk about a whole lot of fantasy players on this team. But we'll start with the Houston Texans, returning with Davis Mills as their quarterback. They've got Marlon Mack at running back, Brandon Cooks at wide receiver. Key players on defense, I didn't put down anybody. That it's not that they don't have any defensive players. There's just none that really, to me, stand out as, yeah, those guys are going to be great this year. But they do have some rookies to watch out for. Derek Stingley Jr. drafted. He could be a key player. He should be, hopefully, for them. Jalen Petrie at safety, another rookie as well, and Christian Harris at linebacker. So they kind of went in on the defense in the draft this year, trying to start to build that. It wasn't that long ago they had a stout defense with guys like Jadeveon Clowney and J.J. Watt, but not anymore. Biggest questions for the Texans. It's got to start at QB. We both kind of like Davis Mills. Is he the future, or are they going to be drafting in the top 2 this year and drafting a quarterback there? Depth in general is a big question mark for Houston, and they really need their rookies to show up and have a big impact as well. Win totals for the Texans is at 4.5. What's your take on the Texans, Dad?
Well, Texans, like I said, they're definitely, rebuilding. It'll be interesting to see with, Lovie Smith as coach, how that goes there. And, they probably will be drafting pretty high again. So, unless they're really convinced about the quarterback, again, with the people coming out this year, they may definitely be in the market for it. 4.5, again, I don't know how well they'll do in their division. I probably would have to go under 4.5, maybe about 4 games would be where they're at, but they should be right in that area.
Yeah, I'll go over 4.5. I think they can get to 5. This is going to be a classic one of those teams that has to overachieve all year long. Do they have the guys with the right mind space, head space to do that? I'm not sure. But I'll give them over 4.5. I like Davis Mills. Is he going to be a superstar quarterback? I don't know about that. Is he a serviceable quarterback? I would say yes. So then again, you look at, well, if they finish in the top 2, then they're going to be drafting a quarterback more than likely. So this is Davis Mills playing for his starting career probably at this point. And then again, those defensive rookies are important pieces. Stingley, Petrie, and Harris are all guys that, if they don't start the season, they should finish the season. Right now, they're all listed as starters in this defense, but they don't have any go-to studs on defense anymore. They've got guys that you may have heard about. Christian Kirksey, we've heard about him because he played for Green Bay. Let me run off some names to you, Dad, and see if you know him. Roy Lopez. You know Roy Lopez?
No, I don't think so.
No, it's starting nose tackle. What about Garrett Wallow?
No, I can't say I know a lot of their defensive guys. So.
Starting Sam linebacker for him. How about, let's see here, Tavir Thomas?
No, none of those guys ring a bell. So.
Starting nickelback. So there you go. Those are starters. And, they got some guys. Jerry Hughes is listed as a backup defensive end. He played at Buffalo for a while. Mario Addison, also from Buffalo, listed as a backup defensive end. So they've got some guys around. Desmond King at cornerback, but again, listed as a backup. So I'll be interested to see kind of which way they go with that. Are you looking at anybody fantasy-wise from Houston?
Cooks is really about the only guy. There'll be a team, but obviously, keep an eye on later in the year as you need to pick people up. Somebody may develop as far as, a running back or something there. But, I think Cooks, wide receiver, is about the only guy that would jump out there. Maybe Pierce, running back, but you probably wouldn't draft him, in the draft. So.
I'm not drafting any Texans. I won't say I won't sign them later in the year. If someone starts doing something, like you said, Dameon Pierce, the rookie running back, is a guy that right now he's listed as the starter, even over to Marlon Mack. So he might get plenty of touches, but I don't know if their offensive line is good enough for that to matter. Brandon Cooks, he's got the name. I'm staying away from all Texans. I'm not drafting a Texan this year. I will watch them. And there's guys on the team, Nico Collins, a third-round pick from last year, that maybe develops into something at a wide receiver. But yeah, I'm staying away from them all the way around. Are they finishing number 1 or number 2 in draft picks this year, you think?
It very easily could. Yeah, I think I'll be in top 4 for sure, maybe the top 2.
Yeah, I'm not ready to call them top 2 just yet, but they seem like a team that could definitely be there. But I like Lovie Smith and I like Davis Mills, and maybe those things can add up to something positive for them this year. Let's get to Indianapolis. New quarterback, Matt Ryan. Stud running back, Jonathan Taylor. Young receiver, Michael Pittman. Defensively, they got some real talented guys. DeForest Buckner. Shaquille, formerly known as Dennis Leonard. Not Dennis. What was his name? Was it Dennis? Anyways, Leonard, Shaquille Leonard, Stephon Gilmore's there at cornerback as well. Let's see here. They got some interesting rookies as well. They got a second rounder, Alex Pierce at wide receiver that should start. They got a third rounder at safety, Nick Cross, that's looking at starting, and a defensive tackle in the 5th round that I really like, Eric Johnson, seeing some time as well. Biggest question is Matt Ryan. Does he still got it? If he does, they're going to have a great year. The biggest issue they've had in the past, though, is consistency. Their win total is at 9.5. I'm in on the Colts this year. I'm going to go over 9.5. How do you feel about the Colts?
Yeah, I would agree. I think over 9.5. Again, I think the division they're in should help them there. I like the coach there and everything. They've got, of course, a great player there in the running back. And I think Matt Ryan should do well. I think he should fit right into the system there. And I think the biggest thing is with the division they're in, they can have good success, have a good defense. And I think Indianapolis easily could win the division.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor. I've been all in on Jonathan Taylor from the get-go. Still there. They've got good depth at running back, though. Nyheim Hines and Phillip Lindsay there as well to back him up. Wide receiver is a question mark for me. That's probably my biggest concern for their offense. Michael Pittman showed some stuff last year. They've got a second rounder from 2019, Paris Campbell, that's had some good games. They have the second rounder this year, the rookie Alex Pierce. They don't have a ton of great depth, though, at wide receiver. So that scares me. Tight end is okay. Maybe the rookie, the third-round pick, Jelani Woods, will see some time eventually. But right now, I'm just not a fan of what they got sitting there at tight end either. So I got some concerns about this, but the weak division eases some of those concerns. So that's kind of where I sit when it comes to that. Defensively, though, they got guys, Kwity Paye, who they drafted in the first round last year, DeForest Buckner, Yannick Ngakoue, Shaquille Leonard, Stephon Gilmore, Kenny Moore, Julian Blackman, guys that can play some football in the defense. So I think the defense holds its own and the offense finds its way. So, yeah, I like them probably to win the division this year too. And me and you are both kind of down on the Titans, so maybe that's part of where we look at with this as well. Yeah. Let's talk fantasy football with the Colts. Jonathan Taylor, I think, number 1 overall draft pick. That's where I would go if I had the number 1 overall draft pick. Matt Ryan's a quarterback I like. If you choose to wait on quarterbacks, I like Matt Ryan late in the round. I would take Michael Pittman, but I'm still just really concerned about these receivers. And until I kind of see what they decide to go with, I'm probably staying away from the Indianapolis receivers on draft night. So I'm looking at Jonathan Taylor early, number 1 overall, and Matt Ryan later in the draft.
Yeah, I think, like I said, Taylor, I think, is the number 1 overall. Ryan would be, either a second quarterback or quarterback later on. Pittman, I think, is going to be good. He looked good coming out of college and had some good moves last year. I think he'll be a number 1 receiver. I don't think he's in the top tier of receivers, but after that, I think he could be a starting receiver for you if you need to. Definitely one of your top 2, and he could end up having a really, really good year. So Pittman isn't a guy I would shy away from. And their defense, top 10 defense. When you're drafting a defense, they'd be one you'd look at.
So you put Pittman as a guy that could be a number 1 fantasy receiver?
He could be. I think definitely be one of your 2 starters. If you end up waiting on receivers, taking other positions, and he might be a guy you would take. But otherwise, I would take him very quickly as my number 2 receiver if I had the chance.
All right. Let's head down to Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence, second year as a quarterback, first year underneath a competent coach. James Robinson at running back. Travis Etienne missed his whole rookie season. Will be in. They signed Christian Kirk as a receiver out of Arizona, and they bring in Evan Ingram, tight end from New York. Defensively, they got Josh Allen. He is a stud. He's going to get some help this year, which should make him even better. Travon Walker, their number 1 draft pick, and Shaq Griffin there as well. Rookies to watch out for, they've got them. Travon Walker at linebacker, Devin Lloyd, another linebacker they drafted this year. And watch out for 7th rounder cornerback Monteric Brown. Looks like he's going to get some run there for the Jaguars as well. The question around the Jaguars is, will they look competent this year? They did not last year. Urban Meyer was an absolute disaster. They've got wide receiver questions. They got guys who you've heard of, but nobody that's really stood out as a number 1 receiver yet in the league. And then, of course, the growth of Trevor Lawrence as well. Their win total is at 6.5, and Dad, I struggle. I ended up going under 6.5, but I got to be honest with you, I would not be surprised if they get to 7 wins this year.
Yeah, I would go over 6.5. I think they can get to 7 or so. I like Peterson. I think he'll instill a different spirit in the team and a different attitude. Again, in the division they're in, they have, a chance to get some wins there. And I think they're a team that could surprise people. Again, a lot will depend on their young defensive guys. The young rookies could, they're going to be good. Whether they can get it put together early on, we'll have to see. I do think Trevor Lawrence, I know you like him too. I think he will be much improved to help with the coaching. The running back that was out last year at the end, could be really make a real difference in there. So I think they'll be an improved team. I don't believe they'll be drafting as early.
You say surprise people. So what do you mean by that? I mean, are you talking about pushing for the playoffs, or are you talking about 7-8 wins?
I'm talking about getting wins. I think when you're going to look at them and say, "Oh, we're playing Jacksonville," no matter how much people want to get up for them. So it's the kind of team that can surprise and get a win or two that you wouldn't expect.
Right now, they're slotted to start 3 rookies, 2 of them at linebacker, Devin Lloyd and Trevon Walker, and then the center, 3rd-round pick Luke Fortner out of Kentucky. They've got another linebacker they drafted too, Chad Muma, who I'm a huge fan of. He's listed as a backup right now. I would not be surprised if he ends up starting before the season ends either. They've got holes still. So, yeah, I think they're still a year away from building this team. They brought in some interesting free agents. Brandon Scherf comes over at guard from Washington, which is a really good bring-in, I think, at least. Christian Kirk. Let's talk about those receivers for a second. We can talk about it fantasy-wise as well. Marvin Jones from Detroit, Zay Jones from the Raiders, Christian Kirk from Arizona, Laquan Treadwell, who's never busted through yet in the league, comes over from Atlanta. Laviska Shenault, who I loved his rookie season, didn't do anything last year, is there as well. They bring over Agnew from Detroit as well. Who's the number one in that group? Because Marvin Jones is kind of looks like the number one at the moment. Christian Kirk's playing the slot, and Zay Jones on the other side. I mean, which of those receivers do you trust?
Well, I think Christian Kirk, it should be a guy that does real well. And Marvin Jones is a guy that, you have to keep an eye on. Not, again, one of the top receivers in the league, but I think this would be one when you look fantasy-wise. I don't know if you draft a wide receiver, definitely not early, maybe late you would take Kirk, but Jones is the guy to keep an eye on and see what kind of year he has.
Yeah, this is a year of prove it right now for these guys because you look at this receiving group, Christian Kirk, I mean, you and I both like Christian Kirk, but he's always been on a team that's had a lot of receiving options. And Marvin Jones is fine, but you got to have someone that can draw attention, and I don't know that they got that. And I still wonder if Chenault's going to break through. To me, Laviska Shenault and Travis Etienne could play kind of a similar role. I mean, Etienne now is healthy. If he stays healthy, he's going to be a pass catcher out of the backfield. They're going to move him around and do some different things with him. So that might take time away from Laviska Shenault. Laquan Treadwell, kind of similar, an athletic guy for sure as well. So it's an interesting team. I like Evan Ingram. You talk about fantasy football. My philosophy is if it's a young quarterback, I like the tight end because the young quarterbacks tend to find that safety valve, and that tight end tends to be that way a lot. I like Evan Ingram anyhow. He has a drop problem at times, but I like Evan Ingram at tight end. He's definitely not one of the top tight ends, but I like him fantasy-wise. And I actually kind of like Trevor Lawrence fantasy-wise too, but this, again, if you take the philosophy of take a quarterback last, don't take him early, go ahead and get all your other positions. Trevor Lawrence is a guy I'm looking at that's I think has great value in drafts right now. I like James Robinson at running back. I probably like Etienne better because I think he's just a little bit more versatile of a running back, but we haven't seen what Etienne can do yet. So I'm probably not drafting either of those guys early. If Etienne's there in late rounds, then I'll take him. But I think Etienne's going to get swept up earlier in a lot of these drafts that we're in, at least as well. So I don't know if there's anything. Evan Ingram might be the one guy I look at and go, I'm comfortable with taking him. Everybody else, I got to admit, I got a little bit of hesitancy on.
Yeah, I think that's true. But again, I think later on, you're looking at both running backs. Robinson, of course, is real good a couple of years ago, so you don't know. And again, when you talked about the wide receivers, both Etienne and Robinson catch the ball. So, if they set this up right, they should be thrown to the receiver or the running backs too, and could open things up. But yeah, fantasy-wise, Trevor Lawrence is a guy, especially, if you're in a keeper league, but, he might end up having a real strong year. So it might be a good, I don't know if he'd be my first quarterback, but might be a guy you look at for the second quarterback. And if you don't draft anyone here, I think Jacksonville's definitely a team you'll keep your eye on the first couple of weeks and see what's happening there.
Yeah, I think Lawrence, he might end up being able to be a number one quarterback He's not the number one quarterback, but I think there's a lot of potential for him in this system. But again, Etienne being hurt last year, so not really seeing him play. Robinson with a new coach, he had the favor of the old coaching staff. Can he gain the favor with the new one? How are they going to divide up the touches? All that kind of stuff. That's what scares me about the Jaguars running backs. Okay. I don't remember what you said. Did you say under 6.5 or over 6.5?
I'll go over 6.5. I think it can get 7.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they did, but I'm going to stick with under. I think 6 is probably the number. Let's get to the Titans. Neither you or I like the Titans. Ryan Tannehill at quarterback, I'm just not a fan of. I don't draft him in fantasy. I don't think he's a bad person or anything. I don't think he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Derrick Henry at running back is a bruiser. Austin Hooper comes over at tight end. Robert Woods at wide receiver. Defensively, Harold Landry rushing the quarterback. Kevin Byard, Caleb Farley, Elijah Molden, young guys in the defensive backfield. Rookies to watch out for. Treylon Burks comes over to take that A.J. Brown role, and it's looked good so far. Roger McCreary was the second-round cornerback. Both of them are going to be instrumental in this season for the Titans. The big questions for the Titans, Tannehill. How many years are they going to run Tannehill out there? They drafted a guy this year. I think Tannehill plays the whole season. But at some point, his time his ceiling, I think he's already reached it, in my personal opinion. Also, the defensive front seven is really weak right now. How will they play and how will they hold their own as well? Their win total is at 9.5. I am going under the Titans 9.5, and I think this might be a year that brings them back to reality where they've been really good and overachieved the last couple of years.
Yeah, I'll go under 9.5. I think it's close, 9-10 wins there. Because again, the coach seems to be doing well there. And again, if Derrick Henry stays healthy, they're always going to be a factor from there. So it'll be interesting. I think an interesting thing will be to see how they handle the quarterback situation. Do they get into if they don't win a lot of games early and if Tannehill struggles, are they going to throw the rookie in there and all of a sudden he's got a big arm and, he has a big game? Could they get into a quarterback controversy? If they do, then that's going to, I think, be their undoing. And again, I'm not sure I understood trading Brown because he was one guy that was really solid for him. Now, Woods can be good. He's had some injuries there. They got a good rookie. I mean, I was hoping the Packers would get Burks, but again, he is a rookie, and, he's with Ryan Tannehill. So, I don't know. I think you might be worded it correctly. They may come back down to reality a little bit this year.
Tannehill, he's not going to lose the job so much. Someone's got to take it from him. He's a fine quarterback. He's an average quarterback, and he does well in fantasy to some degree as well. I think there's a ceiling on him, and I just don't think he's ever going to get over that hump. And Malik Willis, I don't think he'll play a snap this year unless there's injury issues. But I think it's Tannehill will play the season, but his time is definitely short in Tennessee, I think. Let's talk fantasy stuff. I mean, Treylon Burks is a guy I'm intrigued in. I like young receivers. I love rookie receivers. And Treylon Burks, the physicality that he has, I like him. But again, I'm looking late in the draft. I'm not reaching for Treylon Burks. Derrick Henry's a guy I would take. We did our running back rankings. Both of us had him pretty high up there. Definitely Derrick Henry's a guy that I would take. Austin Hooper, I think I would even take a swing on as well if I'm looking for a second tight end somewhere. But I'm not doing Robert Woods, and the other receivers are no-namers that are going to have to make a name. So basically, that's what I'm looking at: Derrick Henry, Austin Hooper, and I'll take a swing on Treylon Burks.
I think Henry is one of the top running backs for sure. I think will be one of the top few guys come off the board there, and should be, because he, like I said, he can change the game, but he's a great fantasy player there. I agree with you about Hooper. I had him down because the Titans have always used their tight ends, and I liked him in some of the other places he's been. I think he's kind of underachieved lately. So I think, again, for a second second or third tight end, he'd be a guy to look at late in the draft. Burks, again, is a rookie. I don't think you could take him early, but him. And I think Woods. I've liked Woods when he was with the Rams. And again, wouldn't be an early wide receiver, but you get down to the end and got a draft pick left, and he's there. He might be a guy to take a chance on and see how he does.
How do you see the AFC shaking out this year, top to bottom?
I've got Indianapolis, then Tennessee, Jacksonville, and Houston.
I think I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to agree with you. I think that Jacksonville has that potential to push Tennessee, possibly, especially if Tennessee drops. But I think they are still better than Houston, and I think the Colts are the best team in the AFC South. So I'll do the same thing. Indianapolis, Tennessee, Jacksonville, and then Houston. Let's see. Now, last year, Houston was better than Jacksonville, but I don't think that repeats. NFC South, let's go to the Atlanta Falcons. Superstar quarterback Marcus Mariota comes in to take over for the old man, Matt Ryan. Kyle Pitts, the returning young tight end. Cordero Patterson had himself a year last year. Defensively, Grady Jarrett, Deion Jones, A.J. Terrell, and Casey Hayward comes over to help the defensive backfield. Rookies to watch out for, they drafted Drake London, wide receiver. Quarterback Desmond Ridder might see some time this year as well. And they drafted 3 linebackers, so you might see something come from that. Big question I have for Atlanta is their pass catchers. The last year's rookie Pitts, this year's rookie London. They're big guys, big targets, and an opportunity to find them, get them involved early and often if Atlanta wants to have any success. Their win total is at 4.5, a very low expectation for Atlanta. How are your expectations for Atlanta?
As far as the 4.5, I'll go over that. We'll see. I think the coach has potential to be a good coach. And again, the expectations aren't high. So I think, he can rally that a little bit. In some ways he's in a good division, maybe to get a couple wins. And again, we'll see. They do have some talent. Quarterback will really be the issue. Mariota obviously drafted number 2 overall. So, will he get his mind in the right place, and does he have the ability to be a good quarterback for them? If not, and then the rookie comes in, that'd be a rookie quarterback, and I don't know if that'd be a good situation. So it'd be interesting to see with Mariota. Again, the coach will have some experience with him and from Tennessee, so be interested to see if they use him the right way. Atlanta definitely be in a rebuilding type of mode, but I wouldn't have high expectations, but I'd be a little surprised if they're one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the draft. I think they can do a little better than that.
Yeah, I'll go over also, and I'm going to go over with a lot of these NFC South teams, actually. Drake London is an interesting prospect. Kyle Pitts should be a top tight end. Whether or not he is still a question. Cordero Patterson showed his athleticism is still very useful in the NFL. He's played multiple positions. Do people figure him out? That's kind of a question I have there as well. They've got an interesting offensive line. I'm not sure how good they're going to be this year. That scares me. And there's not a whole lot of weapons outside of London, Pitts, and Patterson either. The receivers are very, very slim. So I'm worried about that. But Mariota has some athleticism, can get out of the pocket, make things happen. Ridder has athleticism as well if he gets the opportunity to play. So I'll go over that. I think this year's probably still a 5-6 win team. But the future, I think, looks pretty good in Atlanta when you look at Desmond Ridder and what he can do. Defensively, again, they've got some pieces, but they're going to have to put it together, and they're going to have to play. I think this is an oddly strong and weak division all at the same time. Carolina's an interesting team. Saints are an interesting team. The Bucs are an aging team. I'm intrigued by this division a lot. So that's part of the reason I'm going over with Atlanta. Fantasy-wise, who do you like at Atlanta?
Well, Kyle Pitts, again, he's one of the top ones. It'll depend a little bit on the quarterback, but he may be right there with, you got the top 2 guys, and he may be right in that category. Sure has the athletic potential, so I like him. Drake London, coming out. Again, wide receiver, going to depend a little bit on the quarterback, but I think he'll be good. Patterson, I'm probably not as interested in. I think he overachieved a little bit last year, but again, he may be their starting running back, and if that's the case, then you need a running back. He'd be a guy to look at. But I think that's the three guys you're looking at.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think other than Patterson, I think Patterson is a legit option there at running back. They used them the correct way last year. They're going to continue to use them that way this year. I like Kyle Pitts. He's a guy that I'm definitely taking a swing on at tight end. I think he has potential to have a huge year this year. As I said earlier, I love rookie wide receivers, especially first-round draft picks. So Drake London is another guy that I'm willing to take a swing on this year, but I need other guys there too. So if he doesn't work out, I did that last year. I drafted Waddle. I drafted Smith. I drafted Jefferson. Those kinds of guys, I just load up on the young receivers, and whichever ones work out, I play. Whichever ones don't, I don't. So I like Drake London a lot there as well. All right. So next up is a really interesting team in the Carolina Panthers with a brand new quarterback again this year. And that is, of course, the one and only Baker Mayfield. Sorry, I lost my notes for a second there. Baker Mayfield, Christian McCaffrey at running back, DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson at receiver, Terrace Marshall, drafted last year, a receiver as well. Defensively, they got Brian Burns, Derek Brown, J.C. Horn, C.J. Henderson, a young overall team that has a lot of potential. Rookies to watch out for really don't have a whole lot. Defensive end, Amari Barno, he was drafted in the 6th round. He's probably going to have some opportunities this year. Originally, when I made my notes, Matt Corral was on that list, but he's out for the season with a foot injury, so we will not see him at all this year. It's between Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, and that's the question I have for the Panthers. I think Mayfield's the quarterback, but can he be the old Baker Mayfield, or is he going to be the always hurt, always struggling Baker Mayfield? Their win total's at 6.5. I'm going to go over. Probably sitting there at the 7 or 8 wins mark is where I look at it. So that's where I am with Carolina. How about you?
I'm afraid Carolina is going to kind of fall apart this year, so I'm going to go under 6.5. I think the deal is there's just not a lot of stability there with the coach. I think he's on a very, very short leash. So unless they start out really well, and again, their quarterback situation, I mean, I like Baker Mayfield, and he might be the guy that can rally them. But again, anything starts to struggle, then you got 2 quarterbacks. I just think the Carolina thing could go downhill. And when it does, then all of a sudden, the coach is not going to be there next year. And that makes for a tough situation. So for some reason, I don't have a lot of confidence. I'm afraid Carolina maybe starting over next year.
They may be. I just think they got some really talented people. I mean, again, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Terrace Marshall. I like those 3 wide receivers. They draft Ikem Ekwonu in the 1st round to kind of solidify that left tackle spot. They got a decent offensive line. Christian McCaffrey is amazing when he's healthy. Then they've got Deontay Foreman and Shuba Hubbard behind him. Ian Thomas is a decent tight end as well. I like what they have on offense, and Matt Rule is an offensive guy. So, man, had they brought in Baker earlier, I'd feel better. But I still think this is an interesting team that has talent. They've got some decent defensive players too. So that's why I'm kind of going over there. When I look at fantasy-wise with Carolina, boy, Christian McCaffrey, yes, I'm drafting Christian McCaffrey. Receivers, though, even though I like all 3 of them, I'm not sure. DJ Moore is probably one guy I would take. I probably wouldn't go Robbie Anderson. Terrace Marshall is a guy I love late in the draft. So Terrace Marshall's a guy that I'll go for late in the draft as well. So I'm not getting Baker Mayfield as my fantasy quarterback, though. Where do you sit fantasy-wise with Carolina?
Yeah, no, I'm going to let Baker Mayfield pass also. McCaffrey, you really can't pass him up. He's had injury problems. But, when he's healthy, he can almost win the game for you by himself. So he'll go very high and should. DJ Moore, again, you're looking at receivers. near the top tier there, again, depending on the quarterback. I like Robbie Anderson. I liked him. Again, I probably wouldn't pick him till right near the end, or again, Carolina will be the team you'll keep an eye on, him and Marshall, and see how they're doing. So not a lot of fantasy people outside of really McCaffrey, and then keeping an eye on DJ Moore.
A sneaky good fantasy defense here as well, and here's why. 2 games against Marcus Mariota, 2 games against Jameis Winston. And I'm a Jameis Winston guy, but he does throw himself some interceptions. So I think it's a sneaky good defense as well to watch out here for in Carolina. Let's see here. Let's go on to our next team, the New Orleans Saints. Just mentioned them, Jameis Winston at quarterback, Alvin Kamara, running back, Michael Thomas is back at receiver. Jarvis Landry returns to the state of Louisiana at receiver as well. Defensively, man, they got some players. Shy Tuttle, Pete Warner, Marcus May, Tyrann Mathieu, Marshawn Lattimore. They've got rookie receiver Chris Olave, rookie cornerback Alante Taylor. They got some interesting stuff. I think, like I said, this is kind of a weak division, a weirdly weak division, because I think they're kind of middle of the pack. But they've got to take advantage of this division. And, of course, Jameis Winston has to be instrumental in that as well. 8.5 is the win total for New Orleans. I'm going over 8.5 for New Orleans. I think they could be a surprise to take the division this year. So that's my take. What about yours on New Orleans?
Yeah, I don't know that they'll take the division, but I would go over 8.5. They seem like a very solid team. I saw a little bit of them this week because they came into town and scrimmaged Green Bay before the game. So I heard a little more about them, and I definitely, their defense is very good, and they do have some talent. The key, like you said, is quarterback. If Winston can have a decent year, then they'd have at least a chance to make the playoffs, I think.
Definitely. This defense is stacked. Those safeties, Marcus May was in New York with the Jets, and they chose not to keep him. Matthew, he's older, been around a while, but he's one of those locker room guys that just lifts up the locker room as well. Shy Tuttle's good. Cam Jordan's still good. Davenport's still good. Demario Davis is old, but he's still good. And then again, Marshawn Lattimore is a very, very good cornerback as well. I love this defense. And like I said, I trust Jameis Winston. Maybe to a fault. I trust Jameis Winston to be an NFL starting quarterback. Fantasy-wise, I'm not taking Jameis Winston in fantasy. I ain't stupid. I'm not taking Jameis Winston in fantasy, but I am taking Alvin Kamara. I am huge on Alvin Kamara, and I think his name is kind of worn off a little bit in fantasy rooms just because his injury issues, the Saints issues. He's at the top of my running back list still. Not number 1, but towards the top. Michael Thomas, I think he has fantasy value, but I will not draft him. I do not like him, so I'm not drafting Michael Thomas. But I think he has fantasy value, so in rankings-wise, I would still have him up there. Just in my personal rankings, I'm not taking him. Chris Olave, though, again, rookie, first-round draft pick. I'm all over that one. I'll take Chris Olave. I'm going to stay away from Jarvis Landry as well. Tight end, though, Adam Troutman. He was supposed to be something last year, never really turned into anything, but I like him a lot. And then you always got to look at Taysom Hill as a late pickup, game day, someone gets hurt, need someone to throw in some points, maybe add him in. I'm not drafting Taysom Hill, though, either. So Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, those are the guys I'm looking at.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at Kamara. I've always liked him. I don't know that I've ever gotten him. I've wanted to on several occasions. And I do think, he's right up there at the top. Like you said, he slipped maybe off everybody's radar a little bit, but he's definitely a top running back. I think their defense, one of the top defenses, when you're taking defense. The 3 wide receivers, Olave, I think, is going to do well. Again, it really depends on what kind of year Winston has, but Winston can throw the ball. I think Thomas could bounce back and be a top wide receiver very easily. Landry, again, I don't think I'd just keep an eye on him, after the draft from there. But I think Thomas, Olave, Kamara, and definitely the defense.
I don't have the stats in front of me. I should have had them pulled up. Jameis Winston, though, yes, he throws a lot of interception, but he throws for a ton of yards and a ton of touchdowns, and he's a quarterback that can get the receivers the ball. A sleeper on this team, Dad, Marquez Callaway, who last year people had way high on their rankings. He's going to be behind Thomas, behind Olave, behind Landry. This is an offense, though, that can spread things out and make things happen, and he's a really good receiver. So he's a sleeper, maybe a late draft swing at there as well. But Adam Troutman, I'm telling you, again, second tight end down the lane. If you wait way long on tight ends, I like to go early on tight ends because there's some really good ones up top. But Troutman's a guy you can get late as well. All right, last team in the division is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And what an interesting team this is. Tom Brady is back after retiring and then unretiring. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Julio Jones at wide receiver. Of course, Fournette at running back as well. Defensively, Vita Vea, Devin White, Mike Edwards, Antoine Winfield. They've got just studs there. They go out and draft Logan Hall at defensive end. That kind of fell to them. They got a third-round running back, Rashad White, you need to watch out for as well. And I think he could steal some snaps from Leonard Fournette this year as well. Big question mark is Tom Brady. When does Tom Brady fall off the cliff? Hasn't happened yet. When will it happen is the question mark. 11.5 is the win total for Tampa. And Dad, put me down as under on 11.5 for Tampa this year.
I'll go over 11.5. I do think they will not be as dominant as they have been. I don't think they're going to win. The NFC may not even be in the NFC championship, but because Brady, has lost some weapons. Now, Gronkowski, you never know when they're going to get him back. But right now, without him, makes a difference. Their defense has lost some people. I don't think they'll be as dominant as they have been. But again, when you look at the division, they should they should do well there. They do have a new coach, and you would think that would be good. I always thought he was going to get one of the coaching jobs. It was a deal where Brady maybe picked him and got rid of the other coach, so maybe that's not a great situation. But if the coach is stable, they've got the good assistants. I think Tampa Bay will still be by far the team to beat in that division. And, when you're talking 11.5, I think they'll go over that. I think you're more like 12, maybe 13.
So the offensive line's in question, right? They lose their starting center to injury. They got a rookie starting left guard. The other guys are good. Donovan Smith at left tackle, Tristan Wirfs at right tackle, Shaq Mason at right guard. Those guys are good. The receivers are phenomenal. You're going to give me Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Russell Gage is going to start probably. Julio Jones in there as well. That's a solid group of receivers. Tight end, Cameron Brate. We've seen what he can do. They signed Kyle Rudolph as well, a veteran, solid presence there. He can run block. He can catch, all those kinds of things. Leonard Fournette at running back, that's pretty good as well. For whatever reason, I don't think they've lost a lot this year, but they've gotten older. And I think that's where the concern comes with Tampa. And I think that maybe they got it in their heads that, hey, we're the top dogs. And I just don't know if they are. And so I think that maybe their ego gets to them a little bit this year. Tom Brady, man, he's the man that never ages. At some point, he's going to age. You look at the fantasy value of these guys, Dad. I mean, Mike Evans, I like a lot. He gets injured a lot, so he scares me to draft him early, but that's where he goes. So if you want him, you got to draft him early. Chris Godwin, I like a lot. I like the weapon that he gives to Tom Brady. How much more can Tom Brady throw it deep is still part of the question mark with him as well. If you draft Julio Jones, I think you're crazy. I think Julio Jones is going to have a better year than he had last year. Fantasy-wise, though, I don't think he's going to have a huge impact. So here's what I look at fantasy value. I'm staying away from Leonard Fournette. I'm not high on him. I will get Rashad White late in the draft, running back, backup rookie running back. I like Cameron Brate at tight end, again, late in the draft as well. And Chris Godwin out of the receivers is probably the guy I go for. I like Mike Evans a lot. His injury just causes me that concern there. I'm probably going to stay away from Mike Evans because I'm not willing to draft him as high as he'll go. So that's kind of what I'm looking at fantasy-wise.
Yeah, I'm probably a little different than you on that. Fournette, I've always liked Fournette. The last couple of years, I've been like, oh, he's probably lost something, but I've been able to get him, and he's really carried me. I mean, to me, he's their main running back. Now, you're right. The offensive line's a little different this year, and that may be a difference. But I do like Fournette as a running back. Of course, Brady, as a quarterback. Evans, I really like. I think he's one of the main targets for sure for Brady. Godwin, I've had, and I always have good luck with him. So I think, Godwin and Evans definitely people to look at. Their defense is one when you're drafting defense. It's definitely a top 10 defense you have to look at there. Julio Jones, you're probably right as far as not a lot of fantasy value, but I do think he's a guy that Brady will use. I think, he had a disappointing year at Tennessee. I think it'll be much different here. Brady likes veterans like that. Julio Jones is still a great target. But as far as being consistent fantasy points, I don't think he is, but I think he will have a better year than last year for sure.
How do you break down the NFC South this year, top to bottom?
I got Tampa Bay, New Orleans, and then Atlanta and Carolina.
All right, so I'm going New Orleans, your NFC South champions, followed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Carolina Panthers, and the Atlanta Falcons. So we differ on that one there, and we'll see how that one shakes out. Let's get over to our fantasy rankings, Dad. This week we're doing wide receivers. We've already done quarterbacks and running backs. Next week we'll do the tight ends. Wide receiver, man, it's an interesting group of guys, and I have a feeling our list is going to differ from each other. Who's your top 3 wide receivers?
Top 3 wide receivers is Cooper Kupp, Jefferson, and Devontae Adams.
Okay, so yes, we are going to differ on this a fair amount, I think. I've got Stephon Diggs as my number 1 guy. Josh Allen's my number 1 quarterback. I think Stephon Diggs is my number 1 receiver. Justin Jefferson is a very close second. I've got Justin Jefferson in our keeper league, and I'm not letting him go. Love Justin Jefferson in that offense especially. And I've got number 3, Dad, Jamar Chase from the Cincinnati Bengals. I've got him sitting there at number 3. I think this year he is a top 3 wide receiver. And because they have so many weapons in Cincinnati, people can't focus in on Jamar Chase because then they get burned by T. Higgins or Taj Boyd. So that's where I'm kind of sticking with Jamar Chase up that high. Give me the rest of your top 10. You got you said you've got who did you say one? You say Kupp 1, Jefferson 2, Adams 3.
Adams 3, then I've got Jamar Chase, Deebo Samuel, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, CeeDee Lamb, and Mike Evans.
Okay, so we're not as far off as I thought we would be on this. The rankings are different, but we got almost the same 10 players. I've got 2 players you didn't have. So I go Diggs, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. Then I go Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, number 5, CeeDee Lamb, number 6, as he is now the receiver in Dallas. Deebo Samuel, number 7, Tyreek Hill, number 8. And then I go A.J. Brown in Philadelphia and Terry McLaurin in Washington. I am a Scary Terry fan, and I think he has a great year this year. But I think wide receiver has a fair amount of depth when you're talking about number 1 wide receivers this year. And you got some room to work with, I think, and to differ with some people this year in your drafts at wide receiver as well. How did you have A.J. Brown or Terry McLaurin close to your top 10?
Yes, I had A.J. Brown at 12. I had Higgins at 11, A.J. Brown, then Waddle, McLaren, and then Pittman, DJ Moore, and Godwin.
Okay, yeah, Waddle I really like too. I've got him in the keeper league also, and I like what he has. But Tua's my worry there with him. But to be fair, Jalen Hurts is a little bit of concern for me with A.J. Brown. But I look at that team. I think A.J. Brown can do some mighty good stuff there. So next week we wrap up our NFL preview of the divisions with the West divisions, and we'll also give you our top 10 tight end rankings. And I have a feeling that our tight end rankings are going to be drastically different as well. I tend to be different on my tight end rankings than a lot of people. Dad, before we close out, I want to talk some Major League Baseball because things have gotten a little wild in Major League Baseball. The Yankees have fallen back to earth. They're only 7 games up now. on Toronto, 8 games up on Tampa. And the Orioles made a little run there, but they've kind of started to fall back as well. In the AL Central, Cleveland, 1 game up on Minnesota. Chicago is right there at 2.5 back as well. And then in the West, Houston's still in control. They're 10.5 up on Seattle, who is still working their way and are in the wild card race. They're actually winning the wild card race. So an interesting group there as well. Actually, Toronto's technically winning the wild card race, but Seattle's right there as well. So let's talk about that American League. Let's start with the East. Are the Yankees going to pull things together here? What's going on with the Yankees?
Well, I mean, I don't think they're going to fall out of probably winning the division, but I don't know. And of course, when the Yankees have trouble in New York, there's a lot of turmoil, and you're hearing a lot this week about a lot of frustration. And of course, we thought the Blue Jays were good going into it, so maybe they'll stay strong. I don't know. It looked like the Yankees weren't going to be touched, and now all of a sudden they're struggling. So I don't know. It'd be great, I think, if Cleveland could get in it, and that's been a tight race all the way along. And to me, it's exciting as Seattle has a good chance to make playoffs. Of course, Houston will win the division.
Yeah, Houston's the best team in the AL right now. They got 4 more wins than New York does, and they were my pick at the beginning of the season for World Series. So for the AL, at least representative in the World Series, Seattle's looking really, really good. And New York's letting Toronto and Tampa hang in there as well. But the Central in both divisions, in both the leagues, American and National, are the weak points, no doubt. That's an interesting race coming down to the end there as well. We got a little bit of a lag, Dad, but I think we're okay to keep you on. Just so people are wondering what the gap is between the question and the answer. But let's talk about the AL Central real quick. Cleveland 1 game up. Minnesota right there behind them. The White Sox behind them. I said at the All-Star break, White Sox win this division. Where do you sit with the AL Central right now? Who do you think comes out on top?
I think maybe Cleveland will come out on top. They've surprised everybody this year. And, again, the White Sox have some talent, and they'll be getting, Anderson back here before long. And they may that could go right down to the last couple games, which could be exciting.
In the National League, the Mets 3 games up on Atlanta. They are healthier than they've been in a while. Atlanta has won 9 out of their last 10 and rolling right now. Philadelphia hanging in there in the wild card race as well. In the Central, St. Louis has a 5-game lead on Milwaukee. Milwaukee's losing to Chicago as we do this podcast right now on Sunday afternoon. So Milwaukee 5 game backs and struggling there. And then in the West, it's the Dodgers. It's only the Dodgers. It's always the Dodgers. 18 games up on San Diego. So let's talk about the East and the Central. We'll start with the East, Dad. Does Atlanta catch New York? And does it really matter at the end of the thing because they're both going to end up making the playoffs?
I think Atlanta could catch them. Again, they've stayed hot. The Mets are a good team, though, and playing well. I think that one could come down again to the last week also. And like I said, they're both going to be major factors in the playoffs. But I think the Braves still have a shot to catch them, and the Phillies have done well.
They have. Yeah, they have. The Brewers, 5 games back, like I said, they travel to Los Angeles to play the Dodgers. Then they've got the Cubs at home and the Pirates at home following that. When it comes down to the St. Louis series, I think they only play St. Louis this year. They got a 2-game series in September, and I think they might be kind of in trouble when it comes to catching the Cardinals, just because they don't really play the Cardinals anymore, which is where you can make the most ground up is when you're playing against them. So do the Cardinals win this division? The winner of this division goes to the playoffs. Whoever's in second, they're not going to be there in the wild card. So you have to win to get in the playoffs. Is it St. Louis or does Milwaukee catch up?
I mean, right now St. Louis is playing better, so I don't know. I'm surprised because I know you're a Brewer fan, so I like the Brewers well. Thought they would do well, but Cardinals are always a good playoff team, so I think the Cardinals, you give them a lead like this late in the year, they probably know how to hold on to it.
Yeah, they're the front runners for sure now, and it would have to take a collapse, I think, of the Cardinals for the Brewers to catch them. They should still stay on their heels so that if they do fall, they should be able to catch up. But it's going to take mistakes from St. Louis in order for Milwaukee to catch them in that division. So you're looking at wild card teams right now: San Diego, Atlanta, Philadelphia, and I think you'll have 3 from the East, 2 from the West, and then the 1 from the Central as well. Our lag has gotten long enough, so I'm going to cut you off, Dad. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in to today's Sports Stove podcast. Visit us on social media at Sports Stove, Twitter, and Instagram. Go to intheclutch.com to get yourself a new T-shirt. Use the code SPORTSSTOVE, and that'll save you 10% off your first purchase there as well. We'll be back Wednesday with the Sports Stove Local Hour. We continue our preview of Eastern Kentucky University's football team. And season is upon us very quickly. And we'll get into college football here really soon as well. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. Until next time, we'll see you around the sports.